Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. Today we're looking at, well, a Tier 9 premium destroyer that has just made it into the game, and that is slightly sneakily. So I don't think I've actually had the ship for review before she came out, but this is the Groningen. It's not Groningen, it is Dutch. It's Groningen. You have to, as if you've got like a little scratch in your throat. So the Groningen is a Friesland class destroyer, or was rather. She was built in the 1950s as I think the second wave of destroyers to replenish the Dutch Navy, and has been in service for quite a while until she was eventually sold, I believe, to Peru, but I'm not 100% certain. I'll have to look it up again. So obviously no real active service in that she was participating in any kind of warfare, because this is a post-war variant, and this is a Friesland class destroyer, aka the Bofors demonstrator platform, because we've got everything Bofors on these things. If you know a little bit about the Friesland in the game, that is one of the really nasty little ships that's out there. Frieslands don't have torpedoes. They do, however, have extremely rapid firing guns, and the Friesland has smoke screens. So before we get into any more details, let's actually compare the ships and see how they hold up against each other. So the first thing that we notice is the Friesland has, oh yeah, and they have all the AA. They put Swedish destroyers to shame, these things. It's a pocket booster. So Friesland has 4 charges of the DEF-AA3, 4 sonars, and 4 smokescreen 2, which means the Friesland is basically permanently in smoke. The Groningen has an engine boost, but just an engine boost 1. She did 3 charges of the DEF-AA and 2 charges of a sonar 1, and no smoke screens. So we don't actually have smoke in this thing. She does, however, get, because she's not in the European tech tree, but in the Dutch tech tree, which is mildly confusing, just because the Dutch tech tree, the Dutch tree didn't even exist by the time the Friesland came out, so she was stuffed into the European tech tree, whereas the Groningen is in the Dutch tech tree, and as such gets the airstrike, which is, just like the Dutch cruisers. Let's compare the two ships. Obviously, they're of the same class, so they're going to be rather similar. The hulls are identical, the speed, maneuverability are identical. The Friesland gets slightly faster firing guns. I don't know why, but she does get them. Other than that, the guns are completely identical as well. So is the AA. The Friesland has better concealment than the Groningen, which is unfair, because the Friesland even gets the smoke screens. She doesn't need no concealment. She's having portable concealment to bring along with her. But the Groningen gets an airstrike. So you have one wing available that you can call in with 8 bombers. So let's compare her then to the Johan de Witt, to the Tech Tree Tier 9 cruiser, and see how that holds up, because they also get airstrikes. So what we can see is that we have 2 more planes in the airstrike, but in return they do less damage and have fewer hit points, don't have the same range, and take longer to reload. So you got kind of one of these airstrikes, but it takes almost a minute to reload, which means that it's not really a sort of main play style as you would. It's just kind of an addition that you have there, which then leaves us in the Groningen as a sort of smokeless Friesland, because that's really what she is, right? You get the engine boost traded for the smoke. You have to play out in the open, but it's an engine boost 1, and these aren't the fastest ships in the universe to begin with, but you need to play out in the open. So this is going to be a hell of a lot more difficult than playing the Friesland, because in the Friesland you pretty much just scoot around in your smoke screen that is more or less permanent across the match, and just set things on fire. That's what Frieslands do. And watch out that you're not getting rushed. You do have the sonar just to make sure you're not getting torpedoed that easily. and then you just sit there and unload. Now, you're sort of doing the same thing in the Groningen, but you are having to do this out in the open, so you will be permanently spotted. But let's have a look at the setup before we get into any more details playstyle-wise. You get the choice between improving the reload and the guns slightly, or to have better to get better AA damage. I think they're both sort of useful. I've played with a mostly AA setup as much as possible, because you don't get the smoke. You can't do the full meme build where you put everything into AA like you can do in the Friesland, because you have to do this out in the open. So you need to be, you need to deal with getting shot at. But yeah, if you were to use the main battery reload and traverse, you don't need the traverse. So it's really just a 3% reload. She does have the slightly slower reload than the Friesland, but I mean, it's still a very, very fast reload. But we can test this quickly. So if we were to put this onto main battery reload, then we would get the reload down to 1.84. And if we were to use the reload module in slot 1, then we would get that down to 1.75. So together with that elite bonus and the reload module, you would get pretty close to the Friesland's base reload. Now, the thing is, the Groningen, like the Friesland, only has two gun turrets. So if you get one of them shot off, you lose 50% of your firepower. Also, because you need to play out in the open, I have ended up playing more on not playing on a full AA setup. You can play this as a full support destroyer, but you don't have the smoke screens, which is what makes the Friesland so powerful in that role. The Groningen kind of can do it, but has to do it out in the open. So I've got the auxiliary module in slot 1 for more range on the AA. And instead of, like on an AA build, you would take the Air Defense Mod 2 here for small caliber AA. Instead, I'm going with propulsion because I need to play out in the open. And in the third slot, you could take the AA range, which is a really good buff here for that. But unfortunately, you need to play out in the open, which means that occasionally you need to make sure that you're not spotted and get shot at as easily. So concealment is what I ended up playing with. And if we put that back into where I had it, just to make sure that we've got the right setup here, that leaves us with a 4.3 kilometer range on the large caliber AA and an almost 3 kilometer on the small caliber. Keep in mind that the Def AA3 is buffing the small caliber disproportionately. So having range on small caliber is actually buffing the small caliber is really important, because it kind of stacks with the defensive AA. And I've got the surface detection down to a extremely respectable 5.45 kilometers. The historical camouflage, I've put it on because I will assume it's a premium and people will eventually spend some money on it. It gives hit points, range, large caliber AA range, which is very nice, torpedo damage reduction, which we don't care about. It would have been really nice if that gave concealment. I don't understand why this doesn't give concealment, because torpedo damage reduction on a destroyer is completely useless. So this is a bit this is a bit of an unfortunate thing. So I think it's not a must-have. The large caliber AA range is nice, but you could totally just play with better surface detection, and or alternatively, I think one of them, yeah. So you could kind of play with that if you wanted AA range, but I generally assume that people would go for it. Now I know that in the where is it? Where did the Groningen actually come from? I think it came from a crate. Yes, it's in the crate. So there is another camo in the crate. And this gives hit points, range, dispersion, and traverse speed. So this is the, I believe, like a modernized camo. It looks like, yeah, 2059. It's like a sci-fi camo. You know my stance towards these things, so I'm not going to comment on style here. But honestly, the stats are nothing special, really, I believe, because you can't fit the dispersion module onto this, so you can't kind of stack this with slightly better dispersion. And with that reload, it doesn't really matter all that much. I mean, it's nice to have, but I don't know. It still doesn't have any concealment, so yeah, there you go. Anyway, that would be the camo you could get from the crate if you were to gamble on these things. So, commander skills. There are a couple of obvious choices here really that we have to go with. First of all, one more sonar and one more def AA. Because the Groningen does not have the same loadout as the Friesland. You only get 3 of the def AA and 2 of the sonar, so having an additional one is not a bad idea. And you're just trading torpedo detection, which, you know, is not a huge trade. Because first of all, you have the sonar, and second of all, you know, that's what that is. You're in a destroyer. You don't really need that. You need it that much. Preheating, air defense expert's a no-brainer. I do like playing with a Daredevil. I know that a lot of people would probably prefer Survivalist, but it doesn't give you an awful lot of actual HP because you don't have that many HP to start with, so you're not healing back that much. So you just get a small percentage boost of what you're healing back, which is probably going to be one hit from a 127mm shell or something that you get extra over the period of the game. Might not be worth it. But the exploit weakness, I think, is pretty useful because setting fires is really your only means of doing damage to anything because you don't have any torpedoes. And unfortunately, we need to trade the recon skill for that. I have taken fully prepared because nothing else makes sense. You could go with adrenaline rush to get the guns firing just that little bit faster, or you could go with extinguisher. You couldn't go with Mistweaver because it doesn't have any smoke. So it doesn't make any sense. You obviously do want the engine overload, and it's either Honor Seeker or the compartment maintenance for the rare occasion where you're perma-flooding. So, yeah, that's the Groningen. Now, how does this thing play compared to the Friesland? Let's get into some games and I'll talk a bit more about sort of the style where I see her. In the first game, it's tier 10. And we are on base capture in the Atlantic, not my favorite map. But we're up against Manfred von Richthofen, Izumo, Double Worcester, Shima, Double Shima, and Harugumo. Yeah, and I don't have any torpedoes. So, you get games like this sometimes. So, what do you do in something that doesn't have a smoke? I mean, against Double Worcester and a carrier. I mean, at least against the carrier it'd be kind of useful, but against Double Worcester, yeah. Well, you play support role, right? This ship is actually pretty good as playing support. And honestly, I would probably do the same in the Friesland, only that I have a smoke screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see where the carriers are going, and then I'm see if I can get myself underneath the enemy airstrike and take some planes down, because that's something that I am very, very good at. And I can probably dodge any torpedo strike that's coming my way if I'm lucky, and the carrier doesn't pay too much attention. So carrier, given that it's a Richthofen, is probably going to go for the friendly carrier or for one of the squishier targets. So def AA up, and we're immediately starting to hammer the planes. And then to his credit, he's actually saying nope, not doing that. And you see the tactical value of this already is already pretty massive, because I've literally just deflected the first airstrike and sent it back to base. The planes aren't coming in. So I'm just going to drop my first airstrike in the direction of that Shimakaze. And yeah, the first strike from the Richthofen has done nothing, and I've shot down 9 planes. That is the power of support ships. I mean, you could do the same thing in a Worcester, but if you have something that has massive amounts of AA, get yourself under the planes. So the next strike's probably not going to go my way, so I am going to head over. And yep, there's a Worcester. So might as well just start shooting at it. And the only saving grace against the Worcester is that these things can't hit me at range if I'm maneuvering. Yeah, there comes the second strike. And it looks like it's going for the western flank here. So once again, I'm getting myself underneath that airstrike, and yeah, that also Kurfürst is probably going to be the target of it. Unfortunately, there's a torpedo drop coming. Now I could have tried dodging this, but I decided not to, just so I could make sure that I shoot as many planes down as possible and prevent any further damage to the GK. Now there's the Harugumo, and as much as you have gunpowder in this thing, So does a Harugumo. So this isn't going to be easy. And we have, I believe, a Stalingrad on our side, which isn't particularly well suited towards that sort of thing, but probably better to deal with Worcester. And I'm just unloading on Harugumo. He's just Damakon the fire, so I'm trying to set another one and see if I get lucky. There's also Shima, so there's going to be more torpedoes in the way. And Stalingrad probably isn't feeling all too confident by now. And but it's good to have him around in case there's Worcester. So Worcester, taking on Worcester would be nice, but he's blind firing the destroyers and I think just running into those torpedoes. So dropping an airstrike onto them again, and Stalingrad's down. Just run into the Shima torps. Unsurprising. Unfortunately, the Shima moved just in time, so now it's just me against Harugumo, Shima, and Worcester. But the team calls out, we're going for the cap. So I don't have to kill these people. I just have to keep them busy and keep them from capping us out. So just get them to shoot at us. There comes a torpedo drop. Unsurprising. And unfortunately, I do have the Worcester shooting at me. So even in a Friesland, the smoke wouldn't have been all that useful. But now I'm just dancing with Harugumo, Worcester, and Shimakaze and trying as much as possible to keep these guys from doing anything sensible, like capturing our base. So which means I have to kind of head towards that direction at the same time, trying not to get killed by these guys, because obviously Worcester, if he can get shots on target, it can make very short work of me. And Harugumo is having a bit of trouble actually hitting me, so I'm running the engine boost, sonar up to see if there are any torpedoes coming. Plane drop in the way of the Harugumo, and I'm not sure where the Shima is. I think the Shima is just slightly ahead, but we're already capping, so I think this is going to be okay. Bomb drop on the Harugumo. Unfortunately, it doesn't hit anything. And yes, I am heading towards the base, trying to intercept Shima. But we're already halfway through the capture progress, and Shima is out of the base again. So I'm not sure where he went. There come some torpedoes. That might have been Shima, because I don't think Harugumo had angles. She might have had. So I can't turn because the Worcester is looking at me funny. And now Shima's in the cap, but now it's too late. So I'm going to have to try and dodge those torpedoes. And that should be I should be clear on that. Come on, I'm calling shenanigans. These were magnetic detonators. As I don't know who it was, if it was Sly or if it was Pigbay, but somebody mentioned that sometimes torpedoes have magnetic detonators, and I think that was hilarious. Yeah, Shima is now in the cap, but it's way too late, and the big wiggle has paid off, because just keeping these guys busy and keeping them from rushing the cap has been helpful. And even though we haven't done an awful lot of damage, but I've shot down, how many planes did I get? Let's see, definitely got the clear skies for my troubles. 27 planes. Yeah, you see the first airstrike just completely decided to nope out of there and actually went back. And done 300 points of team score. So you can definitely be useful to your team, even if you're not doing massive amounts of damage. Then again, sometimes you get into a game where you're top tier, because that is the curse and the beauty of tier 9 matchmaking. For destroyers, it's actually not so bad, especially for something like this, to get in, because you're okay in a tier 10 game, but you're also pretty good in a tier 8 game, or in a tier 9 game where you face tier 8 ships. So it's a bot carrier, and Sovietsky Soyuz, Alsace, Bismarck, Amagi, Johann de Witt, and a Kagero. Now, experienced team on the other side, so we're going to have our work cut out for ourselves, and it's center control in Golden Channel. Oh well, let's see how that goes. One destroyer only. We do have a Baltimore on our team, so maybe that's and a Monarch. Nothing Italian, unfortunately, but we'll see how this. We'll see if that. If anybody does anything. This being the Asian server, my guess would be that nobody even acknowledges the existence of that enemy destroyer. Especially that it's a cargo, it's a torpedo boat. So, engine boost up, full on acceleration, and I want to tuck myself in next to that little corner there, because that allows me to, cover my flank, at least my right flank, and disengage behind the island while still being within the capture circle if necessary. And I always have that extremely useful airstrike. Now, the airstrike is not like your major damage dealer. It's a nice bonus to damage, and you just have one of them. But it allows you to hit targets that are otherwise difficult to reach at times. So I'm trying to do my civic duty and calling out, please try to capture the target area. That would be lovely. And it looks like some of us actually coming in. Sonar up for the first torpedo drop. That's inevitable because the cargo is probably going to drop this position or the other side. So I just want to make sure that we see them in time. There comes the carrier. Not going to go for me because I'm not yet spotted and it's a bot carrier. But there's an Amagi, and I'm going to drop some planes in his way. And then see if we can get some fires on target. Yep, there's the cargo. And the carrier actually flies over me, which well, obviously it's a bot carrier, he hasn't really planned that, but that's a fire on the Amagi and a nice bomb drop. The Amagi Damakons the single fire. So, Monarch, how are you feeling about that one? You want to set some fires? There comes the airstrike. There comes the airstrike from the divot, and we can actually we've taken 3 planes down with the FAA up. It wasn't targeted at us, but still been in the way. And so far, no one's shooting at me because once again, Asian server destroyers tend to get just ignored. That's a double perma on the Amagi. That's a triple fire on the Amagi. Triple perma on the Amagi. Okay, there we go. That's what we're trying to see here. So now, given that he's on fire, let's see if we can set something else on fire. There's the Alsace. There comes the carrier airdrop again. Carrier airdrops aren't bot carrier airdrops aren't targeted. Soyuz is burning. Soyuz is not damage controlling single fire by the looks of it, or maybe he just did. But I am getting shot from the side, so I've pushed ahead a little bit too much, and there's a divot on my side here. So let's back off a little bit. Put an airdrop onto the Alsace and see if we can do something about it. I am starting to take a bit of fire because I think I've pissed off the Amagi. There comes the Kagero. I'm just gonna back off a little bit, get some armor piercing out at that Kagero, and just chip away at his health a little bit while getting into a covered situation. And then we'll wait out the inevitable Kagero torps. There they come. Didn't need no hydro to know that these are there. Defeat the next carrier drop. The cruiser has decided he doesn't want to be in here, but that's all right. I'm used to that sort of thing. So. Who were we shooting at last? I think the Alsace. Well, but there's a Bismarck over there, and Bismarcks burn pretty nicely. So let's go, and that's a double fire. Fair enough that he Damakons that. So now we just have to tick the Damakon down. Our Gasconia has just died. So that should be about it. And see if we can get some fire set. I do have to be careful with that divot on the other side, so I can't poke my nose out too much. But that wasn't me, that was probably Monarch. Yeah, the vid seen me, so I definitely need to back off here. If I had poked out a little bit more, then the vid would have got me in the side, and that would have been the end of me. But you can't win them all. Unfortunately, we're once again not holding the capture circle, but we have been holding it for a while. So we're just again shooting a couple of planes down. And then, yes, I am the most forward. There comes the Vid's airstrike. So I'm just going to stay here, but I think my FAA is still busy shooting down the bot planes, so not sure I'm going to get much out of that airstrike there. I was too far away. And now we can poke our nose out again. We filled up a little bit, and that Alsace looks like he needs some shooting. So let's start that again. And that's where the concealment comes in, because you can, well, do that while not being seen initially until you start opening up, and that is always a good thing because people then focus in on something else. There comes the carrier again. But I think the Johan de Witt is now behind the island and is doing the Dutch airstrike thing. Rather because he's relatively low on hit points, because my battleships, while not actually contesting the capture circle, have been at least useful in doing that. So let's see, is he poking out? Let's see if we can get an sneaky airstrike onto the Wit. I know that thing has got good AA, but it's an airstrike, you know, it's not that I lose anything, but look, he peels almost half of it off before it actually drops. And unfortunately he backs off, so yeah, he knows how airstrikes work. But I can actually at this range get some hits on target, and that's a fire on the Bismarck. Bismarck might Damakon that, he is relatively low, but being HE spammed, obviously, you see at this range, I was even unspotted for a minute there. That's double fire on the Bismarck, maybe his Damakon's on cooldown, well, and the Wit is a one-shot even for me at this point. So we'll just lob shells over that island and start annoying the crap out of these people. Because just because you're behind an island doesn't mean you're safe. Yeah, the Bismarck's definitely irritated by this. Yeah, that is just the most, and he can't even shoot back. Yeah, you see, that's the power of elevation. Now I think I'm too close to hit the Alsace. Yeah, that's not going to go across. So he's too close to the island. There comes the Groningen, the Witt airstrike. Just in case it was targeted at me, I'm gonna zoom out. Oh, there's the David, and he is taking fire. So let's give him the good news. Dutch care packet incoming. And kaboom. That is what I call justice. Alright, now we'll just change position. Alsace double cons the double fire, and now we just have to wait until the damage control comes off cooldown. But I think the Alsace is pretty dead either way, because he's now out in the open. Kansas is shooting at him, and I don't really have time to burn him down anymore. And yeah, if you have to play out in the open, use your teammates as shields, right? Give them something else to shoot at, like that Kansas over there. He's just sitting there broadside, taking damage from the Alsace. So well, use him as a defense. So if everything goes your way, you can definitely do like a nice 80,000 points of damage, and you know, do this out in the open. But you have to play a little bit smarter than you would in a Friesland. You can't just, you know, sail around out in the open and then smoke up and just, you know, start wailing away at the enemy team while being relatively safe from pretty much everything. You have to play that smart, because you'll be visible for most of the battle. You can go undetected, but there's not an awful lot you can do besides the airstrike. And with that one airstrike and a long reload, this is not your main weapon. The airstrike is more an occasional weapon that you can use for taking out low health ships that are going into hiding, or you know, just dropping things that are sitting behind islands, stuff like that. But other than that, this is a good support ship. It's a very good support destroyer. The AA is vicious, and you can do a decent amount of damage even against a tier 10 carrier, and just support your team with that. So if you have other HE spammers in the team, focus your fire, burn down stuff. You know, if you're playing with a friendly carrier, keep an eye on what the carrier is setting on fire, or floods where the damacons happen, and then try to set fires. It's a fun ship. I'm enjoying this. It's not as, you know, it's not as one-dimensional as a Friesland. And I think that's what it makes it for me actually more enjoyable in terms of playstyle. But just to mention, you know, you do need to have good situational awareness. You do need to know where you can and can't be, because you'll be out in the open for the whole battle, and have to be careful not to be shot down. So that is the Groningen, the tier 9, the Friesland sister ship. And that's it for me today. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.